Many of the witch trials occurred during times of religious upheaval, fear of the unknown, and societal instability. Interesting.
Classic.
Yeah. Burn the women because these things are happening.
Welcome to the Scaries, brought to you by Razor Co. I'm Sky.
And I'm Talitha. We are proudly broadcasting from Treaty 4 territory and the homeland of the Métis. In each episode, we tackle the alarming, inconceivable, questionable, shocking, and scary statistics relating to, impacting, and intervening with the lives of women and girls worldwide.
You'll hear the scary truth, take away tools and tips, and learn about what you can do about it. The Scaries is an opportunity to raise awareness, share resources, and collectively use our power as women and supporters of women to make real change. We'd always like to know that the opinions and views shared on this episode are solely our own, so please take them with what you will, and note that the podcast is for entertainment purposes only.
As straight, cisgender, white, able-bodied settler women, we are aware of the privilege that we have, and we want to use this platform to spread awareness about the scary reality that women from around the world face in different life situations.
And why?
Because sometimes nothing is scarier than being a woman. Hello, Scaries. In true Scaries fashion, one of our favorite times of the year is soon upon us, and that is Halloween.
Halloween!
I mean, what is Halloween without the Scaries, right?
Exactly. That's why we exist.
Literally. So we had to take this opportunity to lighten things up a little bit on this episode to talk about all things Halloween, including how Halloween and related topics like witches, specifically, have impacted women and girls for centuries. So let's get spooky, shall we?
Let's do it.
So first, let's set the stage, as we always do, and take a look at how Halloween came to be. So Halloween, as we know it now in North America, originated with the ancient pagan Celtic festival of Samhain, which began over 2,000 years ago when people would light bonfires and wear costumes to ward off ghosts. I mean, that's like a one-sentence summary of like a very intense pagan festival, but more or less that's what it is. So this ancient holiday, always celebrated on October 31st to mark the end of harvest and the start of winter, to acknowledge the division between light and dark halves of the year. Because of this division, November 1st would be the start of their new year.
Cool.
Yeah. The Celts also believed that the boundary between the living and the dead was at its weakest on this day, and as a result, all sorts of fairies and demons, including the souls of the dead or ghosts, were able to visit the living on this night.
Ooh, well, sounds very reminiscent of today's Halloween, although a little bit more ominous.
Like slightly more ominous, yeah. I think like less like lights and like candy and kid. Yeah, but and children.
Let's hide in our house and turn off the lights and pretend we're not there, which I mean, I still do. But
yeah, I mean, for different reasons though. So, yeah, very spooky. And I mean, they definitely took it very literally as well. But I mean, that's what happened back then. So Halloween is the one night of the year when the dead and undead can wander the earth. Very spooky. Mm-hmm. Some of you listening might be thinking, but wait, this sounds like Dias de los Muertos and other holidays celebrated by different communities throughout history and around the world. Why are they only talking about Samhain? Well, because, dear friends, North America was colonized by Europeans who traditionally followed Christian belief systems, and as such, we follow some ancient pagan holidays as well, very similar to like a winter solstice festival and Christmas. Very similar, as another example. Anyways, so going back to our history lesson, in the 8th century, Pope Gregory III designated this November 2nd as All Souls' Day, a day to honor the dead, making the evening before known as All Hallows' Eve and later Halloween.
Halloween actually didn't make its way to Canada until the mid to late 1800s. And so before, like 2,000 years ago, I don't even know what that number would be, but I think it was like the 600s.
Yeah.
But when it came to Canada, it was thanks to the Irish and Scottish immigrants who brought their fun customs along with them, as Talitha mentioned.
Yes.
The first recorded Halloween masquerade, costume party, and instance of children dressing up in disguise in North America popped up in 1898 in Vancouver. And then fast forward to 1927 in Lethbridge, Alberta. That was the first time or the first place recorded to have the commonly used term or phrase trick or treat.
Okay, wait, all in Canada?
Yeah.
We're really setting the stage.
I mean,
it's spooky.
Not necessarily that it doesn't happen in other countries, but these are first recorded.
Yeah, but also like
of these things.
Why is the West Coast so much more spookier?
No.
I love it. I love it.
Totally. So since then, Halloween has exploded, as we all know, in popularity, especially through the 1990s. Now it's a major holiday where people all ages get involved in everything from pumpkin carving to costume parties and, of course, trick-or-treating. And in fact, today, Halloween has become the second most commercially lucrative holiday in Canada next to Christmas.
I mean, I absolutely believe that. The sheer cost of like getting a costume is ridiculous.
Totally.
Then all the treats you have to buy and the decor and like all that kind of stuff. And if you run out of candy, oh my God, watch what you get. Because, it's dangerous.
It adds up. Honestly, I had to convince my kids this year to wear non-related costumes so that we didn't have to all dress up as a family. It's one frozen family, which is what my daughter wanted. We're all being different. Well, I'm not having to dress up at all, thanks to the non-family costume. But did you know, actually, on that note of costumes, though, this is another fun fact, that the tradition of dressing up also has Celtic roots.
Oh, tell me about it.
So on Halloween during Samhain, it's hard to say Samhain.
I know because it's spelled Samhain.
Yeah.
And like that's how some people say it, Samhain.
Samhain. So during Samhain, when it was believed that ghosts came back to the earthly world, people thought they would encounter ghosts if they left their homes. So to avoid being recognized by ghosts, they would wear masks when they left their home after dark so that ghosts would mistake them for other fellow spirits. So very interesting.
Honestly, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Great reasoning.
I'm just going to fit right in with the rest of the spirits walking around. So in addition to dressing up to keep the ghosts away from their homes, people would place bowls of food outside of their home to appease the ghosts if they came to their door and preventing them from entering. Again,
it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So I feel like if I were to be a ghost roaming around, like the thing that I would want is like a snack, like one of my favorite snacks. Because you don't get
what kind of food is ghost food? I wonder what they do put out.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
if you think about it, now we're all just ghosts walking. Like that's what we are. We're ghosts walking around and people are wanting us to ward us off by just candy. So,
which again, it also makes sense. You're like, here, take the candy and go away.
Mm-hmm.
But that also makes us wonder when these disguises turned into what we now know today. We see more and more of today, which is all of these like really hyper-sexualized costume.
Yes.
I mean, it's really hard to find an adult costume specifically designed for women that isn't like sexy nurse or like sexy like farmer or
like
super
sexy anything. Like, I don't even, it's hard to find.
And then in addition to sexy costumes, we're also seeing more and more like inappropriate and offensive Halloween costumes, from things like blackface to portraying eating disorders to even Holocaust victims, which is really disgusting. And like, where does that end?
Right. Ugh. Yeah, it seems honestly more and more that Halloween for adults, like when you think about the context of sexy and just inappropriateness and getting away with anything, is associated with this party culture that Halloween is also like a big drink fest. And it comes the idea that you need to dress sexy to meet your match that night, or you can get away with those offensive things because you want to be the center of attention or you want to draw attention so people see you. But it's okay because you're like just partying and under the influence.
Yeah, had a couple drinks.
Yeah, like honestly, though, when I think back on my favorite costumes, they weren't in my 20s and teens. No. They were totally when I was a kid. And I think my favorite for me was when me and a couple friends, I don't know, maybe it was grade like 6. I think I was stopped trick-or-treating around grade 7. But maybe grades 5 or 6, we were the Pink Ladies.
Oh, love it.
I was Rizzo. And it was amazing. And then another year, I think I was like maybe grade 4. This is always makes me laugh. We were the Blues Brothers.
Which I love.
I must have watched a movie because I don't even, But we were the Blues Brothers. And the best thing is that we got so many compliments from all the teachers and like so many parents who we went to the door because everyone's just like, they knew who we were.
Yeah,
so
totally.
Loved it.
I love the Blues Brothers. That's such a good reference.
Yeah. I was like, looking through photo albums the other day. I was like, what the heck? Where did this come from?
Yeah, so random. I love that.
Yeah. What was yours?
So one year, my brother was a DJ when I was like younger. So one year I had this like gigantic, huge, like I made like a DJ set in front of me. So I had this like huge box and we had like all kinds of like like light up things like on the box. And yeah, it was like very high tech. Yeah. And then another year, which was actually like more recently, one of my favorite Halloween costumes and the one that I complimented on so much was because my son looks like my husband, obviously, as we all know. And so I dressed him up and me up like my husband. And then I remember that one. Surprised him and everyone loved that. Oh my God. So yeah, good. It was just funny. It was just like to have fun and not be,
it's witty and thoughtful versus like inappropriate and sex-based.
Well, and like offending somebody, like hurting somebody's feelings, man. Yeah. But really, whenever I think about Halloween costumes for women, the first thing that pops into mind, which is also evident theme in all popular Halloween movies in our era from when we grew up. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we are wearing witches' hats. But that is, of course, witches.
Totally. I mean, you can't really find a Halloween movie that doesn't have a witch in it.
No.
Like, tell me
the best ones too.
Maybe like horror movies, but there's probably a witch in there somewhere.
Oh yeah,
and something in the background.
I don't watch those, but I know that there's definitely one. It's for sure. Witch.
And especially kids' movies, though. Yeah. Like, we're all about Halloween movies right now, and there's witches everywhere. So yeah. And men are always wizards, right? It's always women that are witches. Even like in Harry Potter, right? Like it's always women. And so there's very much a different connotation with a witch than a wizard.
Oh yeah.
We'll get into that. But so when we think about like why witches are always they're so prominent and why are they aligned to Halloween? And why are they always the evil, villainous hags who can do you harm versus these wizards are just cool people who do magic? Like, why is that?
The witches are like always sucking the lives out of children. Yeah. Well, allow me to enlighten you a little bit about this. So we're going to go back again a few centuries, few thousand years actually. After the Romans took over, the Catholics began converting the Celts. As they do. They like to just, take over all the religions. So as the two belief systems merged, the church believed witches, the healers and original ancient peoples looked to for wisdom and medicine, were actually doing the work of the devil. They believed that witches could turn into cats and other animals such as bats and spiders. In the 1400s, this witch hysteria spread across Europe and resulted in more than 100,000 women accused of witchcraft, with upwards of 50,000 being executed. Ugh. Most via hanging, but those killed during the Spanish Inquisition were burned at the stake.
I can't even imagine. That sounds like the most terrifying, worst way to die ever.
It brings on the term witch hunt to a whole new meaning. It's just horrifying.
Oh.
Yeah, and then in America, the witch scare culminated as the infamous Salem witch trials, which I think a lot of people are familiar with, that ended with mass hysteria and more killing of accused witches. And when you really dig into these witch hunts, the women and men, there were men who were burned or executed as witches during historical witch hunts were not by modern standards like actual witches. Like they weren't necessarily running around on a broomstick.
Well, right, or proving to have magical power and doing all these magical things.
Yes. The accusations and trials were typically based on superstition, fear, religious zealotry, and societal tensions rather than actual evidence of practicing witchcraft. Many of the witch trials occurred during times of religious upheaval, fear of the unknown, and societal instability. Interesting.
Classic.
Yeah. Burn the women because these things are happening. In Europe, this time was tied to the Protestant Reformation, the Catholic Counter-Reformation, and then the widespread fear of the devil, of course. And actually, the concept of witchcraft, quote unquote, was often used as a catch-all for any behavior that went against societal norms, especially in these times of crisis. So accusations could stem from anything like neighborly disputes to personal grudges or simply being, quote unquote, different in some way. There was often no consistent or real evidence of supernatural practices. So people were just...
That's wild. You get in a fight with someone, oh, they're a witch, let's go burn them.
Oh yeah, I've even heard of I don't know if this is true story, but men being I think my wife's a witch because then they wanted to go with this other woman. And so he would and just all sorts of things. Yeah.
Good.
When you look closer at what made those accused different, quote unquote, the vast majority of those were women. And they were often poor, elderly, or living outside societal norms, or being unconventional, quote unquote. So these women were frequently vulnerable and had little power or protection. many historians argue that witch hunts were, in part, a form of social control over women, reinforcing patriarchal power structures.
Surprise, surprise, right? Nothing surprises me anymore these days.
No. I've also heard even like some witch hunts and things were around the idea that like women are so powerful when they like because of their period and they can like bleed without dying. Like, well, things.
And just like the fact that women are healers and bring people together, like all the things that they're like, oh, if women get together and do things, then we're in for it.
So, I mean, things change and changing spins. So don't blame them.
Oh, no.
All in all, those killed for being accused as witches were largely victims of societal fear, misogyny, and political or religious manipulation. So there you have it. The modern concept of a witch, quote unquote, that we know of today is far and away removed from the tragic reality faced by those accused during historical witch hunts.
Like I said, I'm not surprised by any of this. The marginalization and persecution of women, honestly, goes back to the tale as old as time. Like, it's like from the beginning of dawn. Yeah, what else is new? But the more I think about witches, I'm taken back to the project I actually did in high school, and this is funny, where we explored different religions, and my group chose Wiccan as the religion we were going to look at.
It's awesome.
And my partner. And we had so much fun doing this one. But did you know, and I this is one thing I learned, that there are anywhere from 1 million to 2 million people right now practicing paganism in the US alone, which is the broader umbrella that Wicca or Wiccan falls under. And this religion, or this, I don't know, belief system, includes nature-based religions and belief in multiple gods. So those are kind of like the hallmarks of pagan religions.
Right.
But the number of people who practice paganism is more than the number of Presbyterians currently.
Oh,
pretty wild. Like I never would have thought.
Oh, that's weird.
And it's very big in the States. So Wicca as a religion began in Britain in the 1950s. In the US, it came to incorporate elements of feminism, environmentalism, and questioning of traditional authority. So all things that we're still honestly fighting for today, and that are, I don't know how we would say those were Wiccan, but I guess they're adopted. We're called everything. Feminists are called all of those things, probably.
Which is one of them. Yeah.
And these are the things that were part of the social movement sweeping through the country during the 60s and 70s. So all kind of goes hand in hand. Right. Because of these elements, women are known to play a central role in many pagan traditions. However, these beliefs, combined with the patriarchal structures of the time, led to a suspicion and fear of women who were seen as spiritual or socially independent.
Right.
So overall, the connection between women and the dangerous spiritual power was reinforced, like we talked about, with misogynistic ideas that women's independence and knowledge, especially in healing and magic, were threats to male-dominated religions and social systems.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Incredible.
So, for example, Wicca, where Wiccan celebrates both male and female deities or gods, but the goddesses hold more central roles and more power, and they symbolize women's connection to earth, fertility, and creation. In recent decades, women have often found paganism, especially modern Wicca or other neo-pagan movements, empowering. I mean, and what I hear this does have empowering.
Yeah.
These traditions emphasize feminine divinity, the sacredness of nature, and the importance of women's autonomy, elements that resonate, like we said, with feminist ideals today. So, again, there's such like this scary, ominous, like Satanist idea that paganism like worships the devil, or that Wiccan does too, and that for that reason they're so bad, and but from what I hear, I don't think so.
Well, and remember we talked to Laurie Campbell about in the Matriarch episode, and like that was very much even pre-colonialism. Indigenous communities had these women at the center being like the medicine women, and
they were the leaders. Yeah,
were the leaders.
Healers, the medicine women. Yeah, totally.
But then it became a threat, and then it was like, oh no, you're like doing devil's work and whatever else. I mean, just one other way to colonize people.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all very interesting. So knowing all of this, witches should actually be portrayed as healing goddesses that we are, right? Not scary, mean hags that pop culture has made us out. I mean, I'm saying us like we were like practicing Wiccans, but you know what I mean? And take down all the years of patriarchal ideals that have entrenched into societal norms. Anyways, I know what I'm going to be from probably every year on out.
Yeah.
A witch. Well, I have a nice hat now to do it too. So we covered some of the dark history for women surrounding Halloween and related beliefs, but we're also going to talk about we also talked about the reality of modern day Halloween on wallets, and then also on the differences of men and women. So kind of moving away from the historical piece of witches and just moving into some more modern day stats. We're going to close things off by sharing some of the scary statistics that came from a research study that looked at the major differences between Halloween costumes for men and women. So I know that we can just like anecdotally talk about it, but there was actually a research study done on this. So as we mentioned, things are marketed very differently for men and women. So this research study conducted in 2019 at West Chester State University, West Chester State, it's hard to say, examined over 1,600 costumes from major online Halloween superstores. Here are some of the key differences identified. So first, women's costumes rarely have masks.
That's so true. When I think about it, I don't think I've ever worn a costume with a mask. Ever.
No.
I always you want to do your makeup and make you look like whatever it is, but never masked out once.
No. I'm like, even trying to,
not even as a kid.
It's like maybe like a hat, but like not a full mask. Like it's like a little like eye thing.
Right.
Like maybe, or like something like that.
Nope.
Anyways. But this research study showed that only 1% of women's costumes included a mask compared with 35% of men's costumes. Mm-hmm. For children, 46% of boys' costumes came with a mask, but only 4% of girls' costumes had face covering. So why few masks for girls and women? The research said, we found that girls' and women's costumes provided less coverage and accentuated the wearer's own physical attractiveness as the character herself, rather than her costume character, so that she became the featured subject, or maybe object. Mm-hmm. It seemed that girls' costumes had to fulfill demands for feminine ornamental display. She must not simply be a princess, she must display herself as pretty in her princess costume. Yeah. So boys and men, by contrast, are more likely to portray different identities or roles while wearing a costume, and therefore a mask is more appropriate for them.
Makes sense.
Yes.
But also, still, I'm like, wow, but this is still a thing. Like, this is a recent study. This is insane.
And I mean, if you're just like thinking about it, like, it's like,
but you don't. Like, I never thought about it.
Never would have. But like now.
Yeah, but now I'm like, what? Yeah, that's so true.
Reflecting back on it, yeah, it's wild. So the second thing they looked at were that men and women's costumes are described differently. Mm-hmm. So the websites use different language to sell to male and female customers. So this researcher describes that costumes marketed to girls and women consistently promise that she will look cute and sexy and pretty and all eyes will be on her. Whereas costumes marketed to boys typically promise that they will be strong and tough or scary and gross. Costumes marketed to men also promise that they will be funny with lines like, you will be the life of the party. Shocker. Because they need a costume. They have no personality in order to do it. Is that why? So then the third thing this research study looked at was that women's costumes show more skin and are tighter. Perhaps not surprisingly, 88% of women's costumes showed skin compared to only 16% of men's. For the younger set, 68% of girls' costumes showed skin compared to less than 1% of boys' costumes. Most of us know that women and girls' costumes revealed more skin, but women and girls want to stay warm on Halloween, have far fewer choices.
Especially where we live.
Oh, God, exactly. Could be snow, could be anything. And man, we know that as well.
And your costume's basically ruined because you have to wear like 18 layers, especially as kids, like snowsuits.
I was say you're wearing like a giant snowsuit under like your skimpy little hood. Like, yeah. Not only are women potentially cold on Halloween from showing skin, obviously, but their costumes may be uncomfortably tight as well. Almost all, 93% of women's costumes were deemed tight, compared to only 28% of men's costumes. And then for children, 49% of girls' costumes were tight, compared to 5% of boys.
Wow. It's so crazy how, even for young girls, this is the thing. Like tight costumes. But actually, I believe it because I have a boy and a girl, and I bought their costumes, and my son's being a tiger with like a full-on fur suit that's not tight, and my daughter's being Elsa. So, I mean, that's not super tight still, right? Like,
it's still like, even like, I mean, just the dress itself is like, you know, it's body conforming and whatever else. That's how the character is designed. Yeah.
Oh, man. Very interesting.
Yeah.
The things you learn about Halloween. So what can we do as women, as parents, to rectify these differences and put a stop to the perpetuation of these social norms that sexualize and objectify women and girls?
Yeah.
So let's start with it. The first is tell costume companies, what you think. Actually, an American mom, Lynn Kramer, had the right idea when she recently posted an open letter to Party City on Facebook, and she criticized the company's lack of career-themed costumes for girls, which is actually smart because there's a lot of career-themed costumes for boys.
Yes, police officer, firefighter.
Yeah, like doctor. Lad get sexy nurse, right? And I don't think Party City actually did anything about it. The next thing is to consider a do-it-yourself costume. And I love these. Like this at her favorite was when she dressed up as her husband. Like, that's perfect. And funny and easy, right? You just go into their closet. So if you're not happy with the choices in the stores, and they're, honestly, let's be real, like bought costumes are usually junk unless you're going to spend a lot of money.
Oh, it's true. Yeah.
A homemade costume outfit is a great way to boycott and get creative. So, I mean, it's a crafting project. Nobody needs those 100% polyester suits anyways. You can come up with something fun and empowering. Yeah. You could also use Halloween costumes as a teaching moment.
Mm-hmm.
I know, a teaching moment, but there's a lot to learn about Halloween, whether it's what you're going to wear, but also like, how you choose your candy, how you eat, how you check your candy, all of those things. Yeah. Lots of safety things to go into Halloween and teachable moments. But for costumes, help your children to think critically about the real messages behind the costumes that they're made, especially if you have like a boy and a girl and, different kids, you can ask them like, why do you think you had these options? Or when you're shopping for the costumes, bring that up and see what your kids have to say and use it as a teachable moment.
I think even also like teachable moments of like, this is why we don't dress up as this. And like, this is why this is offensive.
Yeah, exactly. Very smart.
Yeah.
Another one is encourage dressing up as a woman who's made positive changes in the world or notable woman throughout history. Again, teachable moments, but an option say, we don't have to be princesses. Like, here's some other amazing women that are real. Yeah. Did some really cool things.
Yeah.
So all in all, these are just some examples of how we can help build strong, resilient girls and, empower ourselves as women, not just for a Halloween treat, but every day of the year.
I love that. What a nice episode. That was short and sweet. Perfect for Halloween. Yeah. So thank you for joining us today as we confronted the terrifying and spooky but real life statistics impacting women and girls. Please share this episode, rate and subscribe wherever you are listening. And stay tuned for more ways to make a positive impact. Together, we can make the world a little less scary for women and girls.
And follow us on Instagram at RaiseHerCo and at Scaries.podcast and on TikTok at RaiseHerCo. And remember, change starts with awareness and action, which is what we're doing right here. So thank you for being a part of the Scaries community and making this world a little less scary for it to exist as a woman. Bye.